Hello everyone, good night. My name is Antonio. I'm the author of FatScript, and tonight we are going to continue on our third part um, of building a console game, particularly a spaceship side scroller game. And there are already on the channel the other two parts which we started basically almost from scratch, and now we already have like a somewhat playable game. I'm going to show the state of the art of the current um, version of the game, and we are going to continue from there. Okay, so let's just run the interpreter fry and then main.fat, which is the game. And here we have this green arrow is our ship. I can control it with the keyboard, and we're navigating this space kind of scenario. And if I hit space, I can shoot, and by shooting I can also kill my enemies, but we still don't have any points, and the enemies are generated quite random. They still fly just straight, so there are a few things that we could probably improve. And also there's even not collision. Even if the enemy collides with me, I'm actually not destroyed, I'm still there. It just draws over it, so there's a little amount of things that we have to create here. So one of the things that I think we should start with is by first adding enemies having the ability to shoot. I think that another thing that would be interesting is like not having enemies which have other enemies on the same column, so to say, shooting at their own. We can maybe just make their bullets just get past the enemies that are in front of them, like the case for this one where we have two of them. But then we could also make the ones that are behind not shoot the, like don't give like a friend fire on the other enemies that are ahead of them. So that's one thing we could do, and also points. And also lives. So we start with an amount of life, we get a game over. If we die enough, if we lose our lives, and then we can like have power-ups and all of that other stuff, and even maybe levels. For now, I'm not really thinking that much about levels. We can also have just like some sort of increasing speed in the game. That's also a way of an increasing amount of enemies showing up every now and then. So that are things that we can do that would improve the difficulty of the game, right? So basically, I'm just gonna press Q, which X or S, you just exit the game, and we are going to go back here to our code. I think that the code has actually grown enough that we might actually want to spread it up into different files to facilitate this development. Okay, so I'm going to create one file here, which is going to be config.fat, where I'm going to move all the constants to it. Like for example, we are using frames per second, 20 frames per second. We are using 30 stars. We are increasing the chance of new enemies every second with a difficulty step of 0.5. Whatever that means, it just controls some sort of difficulty level. Also, state is actually not a config. By definition, state is not a config. This is just an initialization of the state. It could be actually elsewhere in the code. But this is definitely also configs. You're saying that we have a maximum of, for X, which is 79, and Y, which is 23. And then we have this limit for the upper row, for the lower row, all this kind of stuff. I'm just going to move this up here, and we're going to move all of this into the config file. Okay, we could add maybe more comments to explain why each thing is what it is. I'm just gonna, for now, import config. Now this doesn't change anything, but it removes a little bit of the code that we have here in this particular place and spreads it out in a more manageable structure. Another thing which I think that we could probably move away from here, while collide, it's saying that I'm missing probably an L here, am I not? Yeah, collide. So let me just find and replace wherever I have collide with particle is going to be collide with two L's. Okay, and whenever I have collide with, I'm just gonna replace, oops, I'm also gonna replace collide with star with collide with star. Okay, so that should kind of fix some of the issues with correction of the English here. But then once that is done, the main thing is I still have a lot of logic here in the main like game loop. Like this is already like almost 100 lines long. We might want to spread this out a little bit. I remember that I was able to create enemies by just pressing the E letter. We probably don't need that anymore now that we are already generating our enemies. We generate the enemies simply with a chance, which happens here. So this is like how we generate new enemies. We could also pull all those out into different functions so that we don't have all this logic thrown away here. Like for example, apply movement to stars. So we could just have a function which is apply movement to stars. So we don't need that comment as well. And we just add it here and we move this whole thing here into the function body. And then we just say here in the main function, apply movement to stars. We can do the same thing probably with apply movements to bullets. And then we also just we create another function body here. And we move this code into that one. And we remove this. And generate new enemies could also be a function. So what I'm doing is I'm just spreading out the code so that it gets easier to read and to find the things that we need. Generate new enemies equals. And finally, we apply movement to enemies and collide with particles. Actually, we should also collide with the player itself. So, but I'm just gonna put here this thing out, apply movement to enemies. So all these changes that I'm doing here are just for the sake of getting the code a little bit more manageable and self-contained into functions or methods, if you like. But they don't really should change any of the behavior of the game. So I'm just gonna keep here inside this loop for now the part that is the applying the controls to the player. We could also probably move this out, but I'm gonna keep this here for now. And everything else is kind of straightforward. So looking at this, we still should have the game performing pretty much the same. Now, one thing that I want to add is I want to add a line at the top and one line at the bottom. So one line at the top will give us the score, high score, maybe the title of the game, and at the bottom I want to have like maybe this number of lives, like how many lives does our player still have, and maybe at the other side we could have the level number or something like that. So for doing this, one thing we can change is at the configs, we can change where is the limit of x, like of y, for the top and for the bottom. So if I say 2 here and bottom 21, now the big question that I have is, will this be respected by our grid? Like when we draw it, will it draw it correctly? I don't know exactly what is initializing it. Init frame 2 plus 1 plus 1. Yeah, that's actually a problem here. So we are just drawing this box to the maximum of x that we allowed plus 1. And we start, no, wait. This is not what we draw. We draw on this one, from 0, 0 to max. Now we need to start and end at the right position. So let's understand this. So limit x, here we are already adding, like, there's like a lot of things going on here. I think I prefer to make this maths in the config itself. Like, I know it's supposed to be a config, the values should be all like statically set, but I'm gonna do a little bit of maths here just to make it, just to take this out of the way, so that we're gonna have like a property that depends on the limit y and bottom, like the top and bottom. So for what we need to do here, is it gonna start at the it was starting at the 0, 0. So for that case, like the x start box would be x and y. So it still has an x and y, but I'm going to add one thing here. So it's gonna be, it's x plus 1 minus the limit x dot left. Because if I move it, if I move this, actually plus the limit minus 1, that's not correct. So if I move it to the right, I don't want that border to be at the very end. I want to move it a little bit. Then, and I want to add controls or so, whatever information on that side, I could just do it by changing this limit. So that's why I'm going to use this start box. And it will start also with the y being my max. So x equals max dot x plus the limit x left minus 1. Actually, this would be 0. So it's just the limit minus 1. And here it's the same thing, like y is my equals my limit y minus 1. Limit y dot top minus 1. Okay, so yeah, we are drawing the box outside of the limits of the screen that we want to use. Now for the end of it, end box is gonna be x. Then we use here, instead of the left, we use the right side of it. And in this case, we might just actually add a plus 1. And for the bottom as well, we want to draw outside of it, right? So I think this is fair enough. So now we have start and end box, and we can just replace here this thing we were using before with start box and box. And now it should already have slightly fixed the issue we had before, which is giving us more space. So one thing we can try and check here is if after drawing the box, I try to use the first, like the line 0, will it allow me to write outside of the box, or would I write it over the line of text? So I'm just going to put here the name of the game, which is so curses.print at, so what's the position is 0, 0, just for simplicity, and I'm just gonna use yeah, SpaceShip game. Okay, so how does that? So it's printing that right at the top at 0, 0. So let's see if I open again and I maximize this. Just let's see how it yeah. So it's basically writing this on top of like the first line really, which is what I actually expected. One thing we know now is that we can just probably create like the points and start with 0. So I can just start curses print at position 0, actually no, it's a comma 0, so it's at the first line, but we want to put the x at the very end of it, so it's just like max dot x minus 10, for example, and we're gonna create the points to be exactly the size of 10. So how are we gonna do that? There are many ways you can do that, but probably the most simple way of doing it is just saying, okay, I want to place this overlay it on top of a space that has a size of 10. So the way we can achieve that is say, okay, I want to print that it will start with a 0, but I want to overlay something that is just basically blank spaces that repeat 10. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's gonna create a string, like a text that is 10 spaces long, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it's gonna place it here. Actually, it's gonna place it here. But to fix that, you can actually pass one more parameter to overlay here and say, yes, overlay it right. So that's an alignment property, and it will place the 0 there where it should. So I'm going to print this and see if this actually works. Let's stop it here. Okay, so 0 is almost there. It's not really there, quite there, because this x here is not 80. It's 79. So one thing I can do here is just put a -9, and then it would be exactly where we want it to be. Now, I think we are getting a little bit of a problem here with the enemy ships just hitting through the border. Now, I don't know exactly why this is happening, but it shouldn't happen. So it's just, drawing over the border, which wasn't previously happening. So something went wrong. I'm still not sure what went wrong. Maybe you're drawing this at the wrong place, or maybe you were drawing it wrong before. So let's just check at the configs what happened. So I'm saying start box is the limit x left -1. So this is 0. So this is correct. And then it goes to the end box, which is x at the right side, 78 plus 1, which is 79, which is correct. So the place where it's being rendered is actually correct. So probably the problem might have arisen somewhat with the direction here of the things that we do. Apply movement to enemies. So the enemies, they just go all the way to, if position of enemy is bigger than 1, then we draw it. So maybe we should erase it when it's still bigger than 2, and then we just erase it. I'm actually thinking here we should also use here the config and not magic number. So this is the limit x left and then plus 1. For some reason it's not respecting that. So let's see how this behaves now. This ship should get up to here and then just disappear. It's still somehow erasing that position, which is something that I'm not liking very much there. I guess the problem now I see is that we are not, once we move this to functions, these are not being updated. They are being created within plus equal is fine because this will update it there, but root, this particles, they are at the root. So I'm just gonna say root dot particles equals this whole thing. And actually, if you want to see, we don't even need the other braces. I think we're exaggerating a little bit here. We can just do it directly like this. Particles equals particles add particle, and then it does all its thing. Here the same thing would be valid for also removing here the braces. Here as well we can do kind of the same and also say root dot enemies. So all these functions, they must update within the root because we are updating the global value for that one. So now this looks a little bit more correct, and I think that the problem had nothing to do with the position itself. It just had to do with the fact that we were not removing it from our limits, and it was getting a little bit odd. So now they just go away. Actually, they're going away 1 position too soon because I added that plus 1 there. So I can also remove that. All right. Okay. Now I think that's all correct. Now let's allow the enemies to shoot also at some random moment. So we have this chance to decide where we create an enemy, and we could also do one more thing, which is depending on like if also something like that chance related to that chance, but maybe multiplied by the number of enemies that we have. Or we just simply, for now, for simplicity, we can just have pretty much the same idea. Like is generate new enemies, make enemies shoot. So this would be something like, again, we need to add more to the bullets. I think we call this particles. I'm not entirely sure if particles is the right name for apply movement to bullets. we probably could just rename particles and particle to bullet. So I'm just gonna search for particles. Where do we find particles? So init particles, bullet color, particles. Yeah, I think we're pretty solid on renaming particles to bullets, right? So I'm just gonna remove the S here, and I'm just gonna call it bullet, and that's it, bullet. Oh, I got some of this wrong. Hopefully not too much got wrong with that. Collide with bullets. Is this still kind of working, or did we mess something up there, right? We just fine replacing the code? No, I think we are still fine, and we have a better naming there. Okay. Cool. So now what we want to do is to add some. Let's add some basic enemies shooting. Okay, so make enemies shoot. So if we have a chance, then likewise we're going to create new bullets, but this time the bullets are going to go in the exact opposite direction. So we probably need to apply movement to bullets, which is bullet erase, bullet update, and then the bullet, if it's less than the max, we just remove it. We just draw it actually, and I think we can just replace this with an arrow here. I mean, actually, question mark is fine because we just have two options. We need to do here is the other condition, which is if bullets go in the other direction, like bullet dot position dot x is greater than. So I think that max here is actually not the right thing to do. We should also be using the limit x. So this is the limit x of right. So if it's less than the limits, and if it's greater than the limit x dot left, so it's then we draw, and it's an and here. So if the bullet is it's not outside from the right and it's not outside from the left, then you draw it, otherwise you just remove it. And now we can just copy the shooting part here, which is for the bullet color, where we just create another object. And if we have that chance, then we add to the bullets a new bullet object, where here the only difference is that the enemy is the one that is going to, we need to pick an enemy at random here to get its position. So we're just gonna look at the enemies. For now, I'm just gonna do one thing, enemies.head. So one thing we need to check is do we have enemies? Like we cannot just shoot something. So if enemies and we have this chance that it decides, then bullets is gonna add the enemy's head dot position dot x. I think that's fair enough. And then we use the same sprite. We are using the bullet color. We can just use the enemy color for that one. It's also kind of an enemy, and it moves in the same speed that we use for our movement of the bullet. We could just copy this 40, like, which is the speed of bullets, into our config, which is bullet speed, and then we are slowly moving all this stuff, all these magic numbers, out of our code. So bullet speed, and here we have it minus bullet speed. So it may happen that eventually the enemy shoots, but I'm not really seeing any enemies shooting right now. Okay, so maybe we're never hitting this part. So if enemies, okay, make enemies shoot. If your enemies make enemies shoot, apply movement to enemies. Okay, that seems fair. Let's try again. Okay. Now, why is it shooting at me? Oh, okay, I see. We need to use the position in both parts. So the X is this thing, the Y for the bullet position is also. I think I'm changing the wrong thing here. Here, X is this thing, Y is this thing. Now we can clearly see why it's wrong. So we need to also use the position of the enemy itself. And here it's not +1 but -1, so it's already closer to me. Now the enemies should be able to shoot. Maybe the enemies are just going the same speed of the bullets. Is that so? I don't quite get it. I'm just gonna call this. I'm gonna do an experiment here. So I'm just gonna remove the make enemies shoot from there. I'm gonna take out this condition for now. I'm just put it here, comment it out, and I'm just gonna add another option here so that I can manually shoot by pressing I. So I will just make enemies shoot. So that should create it. I probably am overseeing something that's happening here. Cannot resolve scope of position. Okay, maybe I didn't have an enemy at that point. Now it's shooting. So why didn't it shoot before? And actually the enemy shooting is pretty neat. We got again that problem where they just erase sometimes the place that they're going forward. Don't quite. Oh, maybe that's because of the shooting. Okay. If I shoot at the very end, then it erases it. It makes sense. Okay. So if I spontaneously make enemies shoot, this works. So maybe I need to do it after I move the enemies. This could be a reason why. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe this could be a reason why. And then here it will just shoot on every single frame. That is also not entirely correct. So I'm gonna add one of the conditions, which is, do we have enemies? And if we have enemies, then shoot, yes. Okay. That looks pretty much correct to me. I'm just gonna add 1 here, not 2, -1. And I'm still struggling to understand why it wasn't working before. I think one nice thing here to have is also have a limit where they can shoot. So if enemies so we do have an enemy at the head, otherwise it would be null, and that enemy head .x is, let's say, before, I don't know, where is the player starting? We're starting the player at a specific position. So the player starts as position 5. So I'm just gonna say, okay, just let's put it like 15 or something. So we have like 10, like we have a little bit space for reaction. Yeah, for now this should still make it shoot like a mad dog once it appears on the screen. Missing operand of more. Yes, position.x. So it will be shooting until it gets very close to the end, and then it stops shooting. And I think that the chance of new enemy to the side could also be used here. And chance of new enemy this side. So there is a lot of conditions that happen before we actually shoot. Okay, I disappear, but I don't actually die because we don't have yet collision, like bullets hitting the player itself. We have it with the enemies, but we don't have it with the player. Another question, should one bullet destroy another bullet, or should it destroy... I think that bullets don't need to destroy themselves. I think they just, you have to evade them, and that's it. We could also make bullets destroy bullets. That could probably be useful. But for now, what I'm going to do is try to collide with bullets also our player. So we need to print the number of lives with which we start at the game. So for now, there is no way to reset the game, so I'm just gonna say here at the game state, lives equals 3. And then I'm gonna print the lives. And points equals 0. Okay, so the first thing is here we are printing this 0, but actually what we want to print is state.points.toText overlay, and then we do that thing. And now we can put this into a function which would be like these two, which would be just basically print header, something like that. So we just say print header is this, and then use also this gray border to print that. We could probably improve on that. And then when we initialize in the UI, we just print the game header, and it will just pick up whatever points it has in the state and show. Now, once we kill an enemy, we have to add points. So apply movement. When we do apply movement to enemies, make enemy shoot, generate new enemies, apply movement to bullets. Where are we colliding the enemies with the bullets? apply movement to stars, I guess. That's funny. But that's not the one. So what I wanted to find is where we are colliding actually our enemies with the stars. So somewhere, apply movement to stars is not the case. Apply movement to bullets. Apply movement to enemies. So bullets, find, collide with bullets. Okay, enemy. Here we're trying to collide it with the enemy, but we also need to check if it collides with our. So if we collide with the enemy, we need to bullets raise, bullets remove that specific bullet, and also we want to say state dot points plus equals 10, whatever. So now let's see if I can actually. One thing we need also to do is we need to print game header. So that will actually re-execute that little line and will print over our points. So if I shoot the enemy, I got about 10 points, and yeah. Right. So now I'm making points on my games. That's already an interesting feat. Now we need also to be able to print how many lives we have. So print game footer. Okay, so for the lives, what I'm going to do is I'm just also going to use the same gray border, and I'm gonna print curses.print at also position 0 for the X, but for the Y here we're gonna use the max Y at the last position of the Y. And then what we want to print is just state.lives to text, and then in this case, actually that's not what we want to do. We want to do just this little thing here, which is our ship representation. I'm going to put a space also on its side, and I'm just going to say repeat this thing state live time. So this will just show how many we have there. One problem with this is that we need also to ensure that we erase the exceeding ones. So I'm just going to overlay this on top of a whole blank space that just takes the whole line. So this is going to repeat over the total amount. Maybe you can do something simpler here actually, which is just plus 2 spaces or something like that. It will just erase the last like it will still print some blank spaces at the sides, so it can actually erase whatever lives, additional lives you would have there when it's going down. So if now we collide the bullets with our player, so apply movement to enemies. So if bullets find collide with I think we need a different function here for that. So player take hits equal to something like this. So the bullet is the bullets that find collide with player. That bullet. And then if the bullet collides with the player, bullet erase, bullet remove, state points don't change, but actually what happens here is lives minus equals 1 and print game footer. And we also need to print the game footer at the very beginning here when we knit our UI. So also print the footer. Okay, I think that would already give us our lives. And now what happens is if enemy shoots at me, I died, I'm back. I don't know. I don't think that thing actually worked. So maybe it didn't work at all. Let me just double check everything here if we are actually trying to collide it. So I think we're not calling the function on every iteration. So that would be probably why we're not taking the hits. Apply movement to bullet, generate new enemies, make enemy shoot, player take hits. Okay, so we need to also do this here. So now if the enemies are shooting and I take some shots, I lost 1 life there. I lost 2 lives now. Now I need to go to game over probably if I lose all my lives. There could be some sort of cooldown or other stuff like that. I'm not sure. So for now, the thing that I'm going to do is I'm just gonna take that shot, and if we reach 0 here when we're getting these shots, I think that the most sensible thing is just to show some game over. So to print the game over, I'm just gonna use a very straightforward, simple thing here. Print game over. Okay, game over, and it's just gonna use max x divided by 2, max y divided by 2. Actually, this is not entirely correct. It should be message equals game over, and we're gonna put this message here to use its size, and then the y can be just over 2, and then we print the message here. So we print game over when we lose. Where did we get hit? Player takes hits here. So there's an if here, right? So if state.lives is bigger than 1, then we reduce the life and just print the game footer again. I mean, actually we do this always, but we print the game over if this is less than 1. If this is less than 1, we just print game over. I think we don't need this check. We don't need that. And then we just put it like this. So we reprint the game footer anyway, but we print the game over if we really got to the end of the game. Now, we need to actually somehow stop the game at this point, which we could change here, like the game with a state like is alive, something like that. equals true. So when we die, when we have a game over situation, we also need to toggle that flag. So infinity loop is alive, true, sorry, state dot is alive. And when we die and we print the game over, actually we do two things here, which is, yes, we print the game over, we ensure that this is drawn to the screen. It will actually execute all of that stuff after we take the hits, or we just don't wait for that. So we just do. I think we don't need to worry about that. What we need to do is state dot is alive equals false, and then it means that basically when it hits that point, it won't keep on running. It will just stop and exit the game, or we can ensure that we still can see the message by just adding some time and wait time here. Wait just 2 seconds, something like that. So when we die, we just get that game over thing, and we lost 2 lives, and now game over, and it exits the game. I actually was not very happy with the place where it got placed, the game over thing. I think I also need to divide this by 2, or maybe I should add this minus stuff here at the upper part and then divide by 2. I guess that's the most correct thing. Let me get some hits here. Okay, game over. Okay, the position of game over is now correct. We're getting this because okay, so now I think we are pretty much there with this thing. Okay, I took 1 hit there, another hit, I run away, and the funny fact is that if I think one thing which is kind of annoying is that the player is always like, there is always a chance that the player just disappears somehow. So I'm gonna just draw the player no matter what. When we move the player up, we have this up, draw, raise, jump, draw. I'm just gonna remove this here, and I'm just gonna always ensure that the player is drawn. Unless state is alive. I mean, if it's not alive, then don't draw the player. That's the only condition where you just disappear. Otherwise, just take a hit there, but you're still alive. We might just increase that to 5 lives. I don't know. Also, the funny fact is that the enemy just gets through you and you don't die. So there's a lot of little rules here that we might need to add to actually polish this game. But it's starting to get playable at this point. You already have you already can make a lot of points here. You can die. I'm gonna add 5 lives here for now. I need to fix something that sometimes the bullet just takes too many lives out of the player, but I can already make some points here and try to kill my enemies and take care not to be hit by those bullets of the enemies. Oh, I took 1 hit there. And the only one engaging in combat is the actual enemy that's closer to me. I took 2 hits there. So it's kind of hard to actually shoot those enemies, and I have already 210 points. And yeah, I mean, you see, it's kind of getting there, and I got a game over. So I think that for what we were trying to do, we are pretty much getting to a point where this is already a playable game. and somewhat polished. I think there's quite a lot of other ideas that can be added here to this game. And if you do think this is a nice and interesting game, you would like to kind of dive into more details of what we should actually add to this game, please put a comment to this video, and I would probably try to address it on the next video. It possibly will be the last we will be doing on this game. I think that, I mean, 4 different videos just talking about different parts of building this little console SpaceShip game is already like a lot of effort, and I think we already got to a point where this is already starting to look nice. And this is only actually to showcase the use of FatScript as a language that allows you to create like some little console apps, and this is a much more complex and advanced use case in some sense, that it's kind of, games are always a little bit hard and complex. I'm not getting too much here into the details of physics or anything. I'm just trying to make it the most simple possible way to make like collisions and that kind of stuff, which could be done in a much better way. So I think that we're getting close to have a closing for this game development here, and I hope you're enjoying it. And please, if you did like this video, click the like button so YouTube knows how to recommend this to more people. And yeah, that's it. Hope you have enjoyed, and we see ourselves on the next Monday for one more and final video on the SpaceShip game.